Back to Australia, we've obviously just come out of the referendum, resounding no. What does that tell us?
What it tells us is courage is contagious, that we should have the courage of our convictions to argue for what we think is right for the Australian people, and quite often we will be rewarded for that authenticity.
It shows that Aussies in particular won't be told by the big corporates, the big end of town, the academics. I heard it described as the academy, those that turn their nose up and say, you need this, it'll be good for you.
Were you surprised by the result in Victoria?
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Avi Yemeni for Rebel News in London at the ARC conference. The pushback to the WEF. I'm here to talk to attendees who you usually wouldn't have access to, and what you're about to watch is one of those interviews. So when you finish, make sure to like, comment and share, and then head over to followavi.com. Make sure to subscribe to our mailing list and follow me across all socials in case the interview you're watching now might be a little bit too spicy. It'll get me banned off the platform you're watching on now. Followavi.com. Enjoy. Moira, what are we doing here?
Well, it looks like an extreme far-right racist Nazi rally or something. Isn't that what it is? No, it's just a bunch of ordinary people who care about civil democratic freedoms.
Be careful what you say. I did see Jacinta Price here. She fits into that category, doesn't she?
I have seen her called a racist so many times. It's like words have no objective correlation to reality anymore.
It's good to be in the room with so many like-minded people, I've got to say, as a start. It's always refreshing. We've heard the first session and Jordan Peterson spoke, and he's too smart for me, so I don't know what he said, but it sounded pretty good. So it's actually genuinely very impressive, hearing these people talk. Great thought leaders, and I think we've missed a bit of that. There's a lot of talk. We've got to turn it into action, though, and we've got to start pushing back on some of this nonsense.
Being dubbed the WEF of the right, is it as powerful or as dangerous, or neither or both?
Whatever's happened to Davos, it's gone way off the tracks with this stakeholder capitalism, all this stuff. I think we've got to get back to the fact that there's a role for business and corporations in our community, but they're there to provide services. They're there to serve customers and their shareholders, not to try and rule the world themselves. And I fear that WEF has just become a vehicle to undermine democracy and trying to make decisions for the world as some kind of aristocracy. So this is like the antithesis of that, because we're here to defend democracy, here to make sure we give the will of the people their say in democratic processes and take it back from those big corporations. And in even better news, I haven't yet seen bugs on the menu here at ARC. I don't think we'll be eating any bugs.
Look, this is a great conference to come to. I lived here for 10 years, so it's kind of fun to come back and see a bit of it too, and maybe catch up on all the things that have happened here. When I left before Brexit, so it's great to come back and talk to people about what happened and sort of catch up.
So landslide victory for the No campaign against The Voice. I was actually in Israel when it happened, so I'm pretty sure it was literally only Canberra that voted for it. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Well, so in fact, all of the 6 states voted against it. In South Australia, we had a 64.8% no vote, which is pretty amazing behind Queensland. We had a lot of time and effort into the campaign because we thought it would be a swing state. We're pretty left-leaning, sadly, over the course. But it's a resounding win for the no case, and I actually found it pretty encouraging. I think it shows that Aussies in particular won't be told by the big corporates, the big end of town, the academics. I heard it described as the academy, those that turn their nose up and say, you need this, it'll be good for you. Well, that's not the case. Aussies are too smart for that. The left tried to pull the wool over our eyes, and Aussies weren't going to have it, which is great.
What it tells us is courage is contagious, that we should have the courage of our convictions to argue for what we think is right for the Australian people, and quite often we will be rewarded for that authenticity. So 6 months or so ago, when we were debating as the Liberal and National parties, we were debating what we should do, what our position should be about The Voice, some people were saying, hey look, the Australian people are saying they support The Voice because they did at the time in the polls. And if we'd applied the same approach we did to net zero, say, we would have said, yeah, we should be yes, or we would have been wishy-washy. But instead, I've got to give credit to Peter Dutton and all of the Jacinta Price, of course. They showed leadership, said, no, we think this is wrong. Even if the polls don't say that, we're going to fight for that. And by showing that courage, by fighting for our principles, we were able to convince the Australian people, overwhelmingly convince them, about the merits of our arguments. So let's take the same approach to other ideas. It's a bit crazy, but let's do that with energy policy. Let's do that with migration. Let's do that with national security. Have the guts to actually say what we believe. We'll probably win more battles than we lose if we do that.
Were you surprised by the result in Victoria?
Yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, people didn't want it. It was amazing. And I live in this extremely multicultural area and they just didn't want it. You know, they all had interracial marriages. They're all migrants. And like, what's this? You know, no, we've got to have equality before the law. We came to Australia for equality before the law. What is this? You know, they're just angry that this would even be put to them. And that they were called racist. You know, these are actually, you know, people who come from situations where there's real racism, and for them to be called racist, like to call Jacinta Price racist, I mean, it's just despicable.
You know, the Prime Minister has really set himself apart from the rest of Australia on this by choosing to push something that was divisive against all the advice that this was going to be divisive, and then seeing the division, and rather than apologising it or realising he's got a harm that he caused that he has to address, no, instead of that, he's going to go back and consider his position. No, address the damn problem you caused. And that's what we have right now. And if he continues to act like that through to the next election, he'll do himself incredible damage.
What do you think it means that Canberra voted yes and everyone else voted no?
What does it mean? I've got to be polite, don't I? Because you'll probably play this. Canberra's a great place, but it's very left-leaning. And, you know, you would expect that. I don't think that's unexpected, that vote in Canberra. But overwhelmingly, this is a message to the corporate sector and to politicians. We would have thought they'd learnt these lessons through Brexit and the Trump election, but they clearly haven't. So it's corporate sector, if you're listening, it's time to back off.
I think there's been an incredible drive to the left, we're not just talking recent, this is generational. And this idea that we have something that we should be afraid of in our past, who we are, how we got here, that these are bad stories we shouldn't tell, stories that maybe we need to put another lens on top of. These ideas have really caused us some damage. And John Anderson was just articulating that on stage before, this idea that no, our stories are good stories, and our stories are what make us us. And I think maybe we forget that as politicians. You know, we're storytellers. We're here to tell the story of our people in the parliament. That's what it's there for, to represent our people and to take their ideas into the national decision making.
Oh, Jacinta Price, she saved Australia. Just love that woman. And Warren, oh my goodness. You know, that was the boost that we needed. That was the evidence that we needed. And I think if we fail to capitalise on this amazing momentum and really keep fighting back, because you know Labor's not going to give up. You know the Socialists aren't going to give up. They're just going to keep weaseling around, and we just need to keep going from strength to strength. You know, there are no permanent political victories. This is not the time to rest on our laurels just because we won one battle. No, full steam ahead.
What about the Liberal Party?
What about the Liberal Party?
Do you reckon they can take something from this?
Oh, of course, and you know, of course, Peter Dutton and the Liberal Party room backed the No campaign, which was great, and so did the state Liberal team in South Australia. They did a great job as well. Look, I hope so. I don't think people need to be frightened of standing for something, and I think we're seeing that now increasingly, and that's what this is about too. Is that let's stand for our values. Let's not be frightened of it. Let's stop listening to the talk of colonialisation and all this crap. Like, we're all sick of it. We're all good people. We all love our neighbours, and let's not frighten away from the issues because the left are louder and more abrasive.
We've got to remember, the Liberal Party is a collection of anti-Labor forces. That's what it was. We were standing up against this idea that there's something bad about Western civilisation, something that we need to break apart and rebuild. And sometimes I think, you know, it's very easy to get lost. It's very easy to want to be liked, to want to go on Q&A and get the kudos in the big inner cities, and how great it would be to have the CEOs invite you on their aircraft and fly you around the world and tell everybody how great you are. That'd be cool, right? But the hard job of politics is looking at consequences and taking a principled position. And it's difficult. And I say this without looking back in anger at my own party. I want to look forward and be positive. I want to be optimistic. I think Peter Dutton's done a great job of giving us the ability to be principled, you know, to actually decide a position on principle. I've not been afraid to say my piece. I came out against The Voice back in December last year publicly when it was 65% yes. My local newspaper told me I was seeking irrelevance by coming out as a no supporter at that time, you know. And relevant or not, I could look myself in the damn mirror, and I'm pretty happy I can still do that.
Everyone in the Liberal Party, or not everyone, you know, the important people in the Liberal Party keep on going on about how, you know, we've got to modernise, we've got to change, we've got to get rid of half of our party platform values because people don't understand anymore, and, you know, society's moved on. Well, if you've actually read any history, you would know that those principles were hard-won. They're historically re-won over and over again because they prove faithful and true over and over again. This is the only answer to having a society that is in any way diverse that can be cohesive. Either we have a culturally homogenous society where we don't disagree on anything, or if you want to have a diverse society, you must have freedoms to disagree. So I just think it was proof. It proved what all the members were saying. I come from Labor. I knew very early on that most people in Labor agree with me on most issues. Most people in Labor are much closer to the centre, even the centre-right, than they would even be aware. And they would be upset to know what their party has done to them. And I think one of the jobs that the opposition has failed to do is to make it very plain what their own party has done to them.
I certainly think there's a recognition that if we're going to defeat what I think is already a failing Labor government the next election, we've got to be bold. You're not going to defeat a first-term government by being pastel. We've got to take a bold vision for the Australian people about how we're an alternative, how we're different from the Labor Party. There's lots of areas where we should distinguish ourselves, on energy, on cost of living. But that does take guts, because as soon as we come out with a different position, of course, we're going to be attacked. We're going to be called bigots and racists and dinosaurs and denialists and all those amorphisms that the left seem to revel in. But honestly, the Australian people don't care about that. They want to know what you're going to do for them. And if we can show a clear vision for them, I reckon we can win.
I'm not sure which interview you just watched, because could be one of many I've done here at the Arc. But if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it far and wide, because I assume it's one that the mainstream media would not dare run. Certainly not the questions. So it's up to you guys to share it far and wide. And then head over to followavi.com. Make sure to subscribe to the mailing list and follow me across all socials, just in case the interview you just watched was the one that's going to get me kicked off the platform you're watching on right now. So you don't want to ever miss a thing. Followavi.com.